thing where I'll archive afterwards.
Yeah, it should archive afterwards. Hey, it says broadcast.
It's broadcasting. We're live. We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. So if anyone's watching, hello, welcome to the MoChat on-air beta. We're talking with Brian Behm. Is it Behm or Behm?
It's Behm.
Behm.
I guess most people say Behm, so I don't get mad, but it's Behm. So I very rarely hear Behm. I don't know why that is. It's like, to me, when I see that, I see Behm, but no, most people say Behm. So anyway, it's Behm.
Anyway. All right, so we're here with Brian Behm, who is a motion designer, visual effects, kind of all around everything at Rooster.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mutt. I mean, technically my title is motion design director. I think it's because they didn't really know what title I was supposed to have. I've looked around and I don't know of any other motion design directors in the world. So, I think there's like a couple, but basically what it means is I'm in charge of most of our title design here. So I do a lot of our titles, but I also do some visual effects work and really kind of poke my fingers into a lot of things. So I'm kind of a utility guy. I end up helping out in a lot of different ways, but primarily titles and visual effects.
Cool. So tonight I know you're going to walk us through a few projects. I don't know, should we just jump right into it while we're waiting for people to come in? And for anybody watching, feel free to just still tweet with the hashtag MoChat, and we'll be checking that and getting any questions over to Brian as we go. So here we go.
So I think probably the best place to start would be just my reel, so people can know what the heck I actually do. So, so here, let me share my screen. So here's my reel. Let me switch to display audio. Work it, make it all over, after access, work it. So that's my reel. Let me switch back to headphones. I thought. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there's me.
There you are, and you're off, and it's back to you. It should be. Yeah, sorry. There's not a really smooth way to transition to the screen share and then back.
Yeah. Well, like we said, this is beta.
This is beta, so apologies in advance. This is as rough as it comes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone gets to see my lovely basement back here too. There's my kids' toys. This is how polished we are this evening.
I think that doesn't every modern office need a child's kitchen set in the background?
Sometimes you get hungry and you need some pretend grilled cheese sandwiches. So
yeah, I mean, let's see. Let's start with. Well, I guess we could do two things. Would you like to do some case studies, or would you like to see, like, kind of walking through what our process, or what my process is here? I could teach. I could give some of the class that I gave at RTX this year. Actually, you know what? Let's start with just going through one of the projects that I've done recently, and we can talk about how I did that and what I was doing.
Yeah, I think that should be good.
Let me go back to my normal. I need to reset to a one-window workspace in After Effects, so I can't share both screens. So one of the projects that I'm going to switch over to screen share. I'm switching to screen share.
Maybe.
Okay, so do we have that up?
I see. There we go.
Okay, so one of the projects I did recently was for a show called How To with Joel and Adam. Joel and Adam are two of our production guys, and they do these really random um, video game commentary shows. It's hard to even explain. It's chaos, is what it is. So here's what that looks like in the finished version. So what they had told me is that they wanted something that looked like it was breaking down. Um, they have a tendency. So basically, what happens is they play a game, and one person is the keyboard and one person is the mouse, and that doesn't go particularly well most of the time, and inevitably leads to screaming matches. So they wanted something that sort of looked like a blue screen of death, and so I had to figure out how to create that. The asset that I was given, the only thing that I was given to work with was a logo that our designer had done. Let's see if I can pull that up. Oh, well, here's the.
So how often do you get assets directly from other designers versus having to make something on your own?
It really depends. Let me switch back to the camera for a second. I would say it's probably about 50-50. I like when I have the time to be able to actually design identity stuff myself, and sometimes I'm able to do that. Although lately we've been switching more towards our print department doing some of the identity work, and then I take it and extrude it and make the fancy version of it. One of the things about being here is that a lot of we're a traditional production business, but still kind of being in a startup mode, and in a way like exploding size, and being in this wild west of YouTube video and online content. There's kind of changing. Things are constantly changing here, and so the way we do something today isn't the way we necessarily do something tomorrow. And so, right now our print department is doing a lot of logo work, but that could change again, and I could end up doing more of it. It really depends on the season. So right now, a lot of the stuff's being handed off to me, and then I take it and mess with it from there. Let's see. I'm going to pull up the how-to logos that I was emailed, and I can talk about how I approached it. Any questions yet?
Nothing yet. I think everyone's just in awe of your Batman poster.
Oh. That was something that was created by Tim Doyle, who's a really awesome Austin artist that you should all follow. His Twitter handle is Nakatomi Tim, and he runs a company called Nakatomi Print Labs. He does these really cool screen printed posters, and he worked on a red versus blue poster for us that came out recently. When I went over to pick up a set of posters from him, he gave that to me. So
awesome.
Okay, so here is. Let me switch back to my screen share. Okay. So this is what I was given initially. So, hey John, we're really liking the below logo. I think the only thing we'd change is to incorporate a hammer rather than a knife. So this is an Illustrator file. Here are some of the earlier versions that didn't end up making the cut, I had to take this and figure out how to extrude it and also replace the hammer. So one of the first things I did, a lot of my workflow ends up going from Illustrator or Photoshop back to Cinema 4D, and then a lot of times from Cinema 4D I'll then bounce back to either Element 3D or just After Effects in general. In this case, I was rendering in Cinema 4D, so I took that graphic file that I was given and ended up creating this. So I pulled in that file. Actually, I don't even think I got a file. So I downloaded it and pasted it in, and then rebuilt it layer by layer, and ended up with something that was paths that I could bring into Cinema 4D. Let me pull up that file.
While you're pulling that up, Matt Season asked that if you had to pick one piece of software, what would it be? After Effects, Cinema 4D, something else, and why?
Um, Gosh,
It's a tough question.
probably After Effects. After Effects is the program that I've used the longest, and I would have a hard time giving it up. I'm in the process of trying to transition to Nuke for some of the compositing that we're doing, but man, I mean, After Effects and really the Creative Suite in general are like my bread and butter. Like I spend almost every day in them. Well, I mean, every day I am in one of them, and so
Right.
it would be a really, or Photoshop. I mean, there's not a great replacement for Photoshop. I mean, there's GIMP, and you can use GIMP, and people are successful using GIMP, but at the same time, there's no competitor to it in a professional way, and so, I couldn't give it up. So
Right.
I would say, probably the Adobe stuff. Cinema 4D would be a close second, just because a lot of what we're doing now is moving around 3D. But, I could still do some stuff in 2.5D in After Effects and fake the 3D if I had to. And so, After Effects is probably the one that I can't give up.
Yeah. Well, now that
Um,
you have C4D Lite that comes with After Effects too, I
they
mean, it's
do, and
almost the same program at this point, as far as what you get.
I haven't really had a chance to use it a lot because I've got regular 4D installed on my
Mhm.
system, and so but I mean the fact that I was so excited when I know people were a little confused when it was introduced, but I was excited because it meant that a lot of people were going to get access to this tool that I really liked, and I was scared of 3D for a long time. When I first started getting into 3D. Let's switch back to the camera. Um, I first started getting into 3D in production when I was in high school. I was making little videos in like 8th and 9th grade, and I didn't have a way to edit, and so I went to a public access station to take an editing course so I could use their editing equipment, and got sucked into doing production in junior high and high school for all kinds of stuff in my school district. And the school district had a video toaster that people could
Oh
get
wow.
access to, um, which at the time was pretty cool. Um, and there weren't that many of us who wanted to be using it. It was a very small select few, and I was probably one of the few high school kids who was super excited when he got a subscription to Video Toaster User magazine. Um, but Lightwave 3D was part of that Video Toaster package, and you could create something and use you'd have to use a tape deck that could record frame to frame
Mhm.
and set up an edit controller, and you'd spend 2 days rendering out 5 seconds of your little text that had a wood grain texture on it,
Yeah.
playing back. I mean, there's no way to see what was going on, and the way Lightwave and its modeler program were set up, I was so confused. And there wasn't anyone to really explain it, and the manuals were particularly cryptic, and so I just got scared of 3D for a long time, and just the fact that it took so long. And so it was really only a few years ago that I started kind of dabbling back into it again. I'd been doing a lot of 2D production in After Effects and 2.5D, and doing things like nesting layers in Z space in After Effects, and then using pre-composed layers that you can twist around. And, that's a great way to do some basic 3D. It's not efficient, but I mean you can make After Effects do some things that it really shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I got to a point where I needed to go beyond that, and so I it was actually during it was just before season 10 of Red versus Blue. Matt, the CEO, came up to us and came up to me and said, "Okay, so for this project, I really want to be able to fly around a giant Red versus Blue logo and have clips from the past playing back inside of the letters." Here, let's see. Let me pull it up. And he's like, "Can you do that?" And I said, yes, I can do that.
The answer is always yes.
The answer is always yes. Well, yeah, and I said, okay, in order to do that, I'm going to need to get a copy of Cinema 4D, and I've been told that for someone who's a motion designer, it's easier to pick up. And I tried to pick up Maya and didn't have a lot of luck, and so he bought me a copy of Cinema 4D, and I dove in and started trying to learn how to use it. So here is the incredibly bad first project.
They're always fun to watch.
So, forgive me. I've gotten better since then.
AI. What's the A stand for?
Artificial.
What's the
Intelligence.
Oh, what was the A again?
Let's move on. Bottom line is, these freelancers, they're bad news. Tech is one of the worst.
My name.
Oh, Paris!
I totally screwed everything up.
Prepared and implanted with some kind of modified AI. They were supposed to make us faster or stronger. Then people started going crazy.
No idea what kind of trouble you are in.
Ransacked Blue Base, searched all the bodies.
Meta has made another addition.
Then it came after us.
The Omega AI.
It's hunting our top agents. I need all the help I can get.
Memory is the key.
Memory is the key.
You think you're real soldiers? You're not.
I don't give a damn about your computer.
I'm her. Don't you understand?
Faced with extinction, every alternative is preferred.
You said the mission was a success.
The good guys.
Be there, Alpha. You're gonna help me kill the director.
We are the Meta. And you will find it very soon.
So anyway, very first project that I ever did, and so there's a bunch of big issues with this. Like, okay, we need a material that is shiny but not too shiny, and they wanted to not have it be super reflective, so I had to figure out, I had to start experimenting with normals and bumps to create textures in the metal. And then all of a sudden I needed to figure out how to create these reflections and needing them to match up. And a super complex camera move. Like, I spent a solid week trying to figure out how to move the camera this way.
Tech is one of the worst.
My name.
Switch back to... So, there's all of these really complicated things going on, and I ended up blowing my deadline, and I managed to get something ready for PAX East where we were going to show it, but it really wasn't what it was supposed to be. And so afterwards, Matt was, he took me aside and was like, if you didn't know how to do this, you should have told me, and we would have figured it out. I've done something else. And I was like, I thought I was going to ramp up faster than I was, and so I ended up busting my ass the next week and a half to actually make it work. But it was one of those things where I probably bit off a little more than I could chew, and it's okay, and it turned out all right, but it was a big stretch. I will say I learned a huge amount from that project. Like, I turned global illumination on this, and I probably didn't need to, and it was my render times were astronomical because everything was bouncing off of everything else, and it was not good. And so if I had to go back and do it again today, I would do it entirely differently. But I think that taught me the lesson that I'm always trying to stretch myself, but you need to stretch yourself a certain amount and then not any further on that project, and you can stretch further on the next one, but like only stretch a certain percentage. That's going to be I guess that's sort of like weight training. It's like you want to have your muscles like get weak afterwards, but you don't want to push it so far that you cause an injury. Because that's going to do more harm than it's good.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And so that was definitely one of those things where I stretched a little too far, and it kind of harmed my reputation at work for a little while. I mean, even though I finished the project, and it was probably more self-imposed than anything else, but yeah, so that was my first Cinema 4D project.
What version of Cinema 4D were you using at the time?
That would have been R13.
13.
So yeah, I got in 13, and I had used Cinema 4D at one point in the past, but it was on my 75 megahertz Performa 6200.
Nice.
That also wasn't a great 3D experience. So
yeah, I can imagine.
3D on a modern Mac Pro, like after not having done it for a long time, was like a revelation. Suddenly I can render things and it's not a big deal. So do we have any... oh, that was what Ron was asking. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I should not look at MoChat. I will let you look at MoChat. So, anyways, let's go back to talking about the how-to project.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, I took those paths and I rebuilt this in Illustrator, and took those individual elements into Cinema 4D with just standard merge. Where did 4D go to on the front? Okay, so. Cinema 4D froze.
Awesome.
Second. Well, it doesn't say that it's frozen, but I can't click on it.
Can't do anything.
Okay, just a second. Let me force quit. I've not installed 16 yet.
Yeah, the demo came out today, didn't it?
I think the supposedly the regular version came out today too.
Oh, did it too? Oh, did anyone get their serials? If anybody's...
I have not gotten mine yet.
Yeah, I have to go through an accounting department to see if mine show up somewhere. It's always nerve-wracking this time of year.
So I haven't bought it. We haven't upgraded here at the office yet, but I actually bit the bullet and put money down for my own copy at home last week. And so I'm so excited to I've been able to run it here, but I haven't been able to really run it at home in any sort of great way, and so I'm kind of excited to.
What kind of machine are you running at home?
At home, I have a Mac Pro 1.1, so
wow,
very first generation.
Nice. It's still running too, huh?
It's still running. What is Raging Claw saying?
He wants to know about skincare.
He wants to know. I am not the person to ask about skincare. I posted a photo the other day with this. We were shooting a bumper for Fantastic Fest, and we were dressing this mad scientist lab with floating heads. And so there's this way you could do like a head unwrap. And some Rooster Teeth fan was saying, "Dude, you really need moisturizer." So I'm not the person to talk about skincare because I apparently have horrible skincare. So. Anyway, why is this not working? Yeah, I got the peanut gallery tonight.
Yeah.
At least they're watching. That's all that matters.
They're watching Cinema 4D freeze.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any response.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything.
The viewport isn't doing anything. Oh, it did something.
It did something. I don't know if it has to do with Google Hangouts. It might.
Might. When all else fails, blame Google. And there's Raging Claw.
Stop talking to me. I'm trying to be professional. Hey, seriously, Cinema 4D, what are you doing?
I wonder if there's anything with enhanced OpenGL, if that's messing with it.
Maybe. Well, let me open it just one last time, and I will talk through what we're looking at. And
Yeah.
I won't touch anything. Okay, so it's open, and in a second we'll have the thing pop up. I like peanuts. Peanuts are tasty.
So this is why we call this a beta.
Yeah, this is a beta, so we will definitely work this out. Okay, so anyways,
Okay, Brad Stark can just go away. Have you tried turning it off and back on again?
okay, so what this is, I brought the. I do love you, Charles, but I'm trying to focus. Just because you have the power to be able to pop up on my desktop doesn't mean that you should. Okay, so I brought those paths in from Illustrator and did an extrude, and I ended up going and finding just a. I went to one of the free 3D repositories and found the hammer that they were asking for. And if we go to the animation, I did a simple little MoGraph thing that I threw everything inside of a fracture object and then allowed it to slide up and created a little hammer and dove it in. Animated it flying in, rotated it, and then adjusted this the path, the extrude. I animated the path so that you would get this little kind of cracking thing, and it's not super complex, but it plays is more interesting than it is. But before I did any of that, I went through and I based on what they had talked about wanting to do, I went in and built some audio. So let me pull up the mix down. Okay, Audition. Don't know why it won't just open an Audition. This is very rough. I apologize to everyone for. Let's see what this does. So basically, I went through and I built a sound project that kind of described what I wanted the project to do based on the notes that I had gotten from Joel. And let me switch my audio again. So I grabbed a bunch of sound effects from different libraries that we owned and built up this little sound project. And so I used all of that to kind of drive my decisions with how I was animating. So with that, set up the paths in Cinema 4D, rendered it out. I used a perspective camera, or I forget which camera it is exactly, to create this kind of orthogonal view.
Yeah.
I wanted something that was fairly flat. So, anyways, I took that, and the cool thing that I wanted to show was how I created the kind of caps lock, Charles. What? You're confusing me.
I think it's safe to say that if Charles tweets anything or says anything, you can ignore it.
Okay, I will try to ignore it.
And now he's gonna spew hate
Probably.
at me, I'm sure. Now he's gonna wish my iCloud gets hacked.
I don't want to see that. It's okay. I like you as a person. But... Okay, so I had my little animation, and I know After Effects will work. So let's go. Let's start with arrow. So I took my little arrow thing, and I used Motion Sketch to create a kind of organic-y path for it to travel around. And I knew that I wanted the logo to be able to move and trail. Why caps lock in After Effects, Charles? I'm not trying to ignore you, but I don't have the caps lock on. If I turn it on, we won't be able to see any updates. I know how your devious mind works. So yeah, I used Motion Sketch to kind of create that organic path, and then, with the where is my logo?
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the banter going on between Charles and everyone now on the Twitter feed.
What is going on?
I think it's safest just to ignore it.
Okay, I'll try to ignore
it. We will have more questions later, but I know Matthew just brought up one. Was it Matthew? Ron brought up a question now that's relevant. Wants to know if you've used CV ArtSmart to get those splines in, or if you did it the old-fashioned way and saved it out as AI version 7 or whatever.
I saved it out as AI version 8 because I've not had a Cineversity account at Rooster Teeth. I just got one at home, and I am excited to start messing around with CV ArtSmart and their version of the Pathfinder tool. I forget the name of it, but
oh yeah.
Yeah, I really liked the idea of it, and I haven't had a chance to mess with it. And so I literally just got into Cineversity on Friday, and I haven't really had a chance to start diving in and installing the CV plugins yet. So I'm excited because they've been on my list of things that I wanted to mess with, and I haven't been able to get an account here. So hopefully soon and in the future, I love the fact that ArtSmart can take colors and stuff and modern Illustrator versions, so I don't have to save out to 8, but I've not messed with it yet. So, anyway, what I was trying to show, or had been trying to show, was how I ended up doing the trails, because I couldn't quite figure out how to get these trails to move around and create the kind of blue screen of death look. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't figure out how to create these motion trails. So what I ended up doing was using the same kind of motion sketch thing on there, and then creating duplicates of the frame and using freeze to basically freeze it as it's moving around. So let me start a new composition. Okay, so it's in there. We'll split the layer, and now let's create. Let's see what that looks like. So now what we can do is just duplicate the layer and go time, freeze frame. In theory, why didn't that work? Seriously, why did that not work?
So I'm going to be an armchair After Effects guy. Let's
Yeah,
say
go
that
ahead.
because you have your motion path on that layer,
Yeah.
the the time control you're using doesn't affect that. It would have to be pre-composed
Oh,
first.
that's why. I'm sorry. That would be why I pre-composed that project. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know how that's physically possible. I mean, Caboose is a guy, and Sheila's a tank, and so I guess theoretically anything's possible, but I would doubt it. I think that she is a AI that doesn't have the full AI possibilities that Church does as his kind of AI, and so I think that that's probably not something that ever happened. So I hope that you're okay with that. I'm sorry that a guy in a tank never really did the business. That's probably the first time I've ever used that in a sentence.
There's a first time for everything.
I will say, so our official logo is called the Cockbite, and in legal documents. So in one of the first episodes of Red versus Blue, someone calls someone else a cockbite, and they thought about calling the company Cockbite Productions, and they didn't really think that would fly, and so it ended up becoming Rooster Teeth instead. And so, but in legal documents, it's still called the Cockbite.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I mean, there's been lots of weird things. So anyway, so what I did now, you can see that I extracted the luminance from that, and now I was just creating duplicate layers that freeze, and I added some extra stock footage that I had of from Rampant of screen damage. Let me pull that up. So lots of this kind of stuff that I use for displacement maps and other stuff, and you kind of combine everything together, and you end up with this stroby crazy look. And it's not that there's anything particularly complicated going on. I'm just using the stuff that I have available to me. And, sometimes it's easier. I always say that if you have access to like stuff like the Rampant libraries, it's not a cheat to use it. It's just figuring out, particularly in our environment where you need to get something done very quickly and get it out the door. Having access to professional-looking stuff that you can use to soup up what you're working on makes life easier, and nobody needs to know.
Well, that's true. I mean, like I said, with time, we all have to get things done quickly. So, also wondering too, somebody brought up, what is it like working at a company that is a YouTube channel versus a studio or an ad agency or any place like that?
I would say the weird thing is the areas where you're very known, and then once you get outside of that, the people who don't know what you do at all. It's funny. We've got 1 million people on our social site, and we've got 7 or 8 million subscribers on YouTube. But once you get outside of that window of visibility, the cultural awareness of what it is that you're doing is almost zero, and so you have these rabid fan bases and then nothing, and so it's a really weird kind of celebrity. And celebrity isn't necessarily the right word, but I mean it's a weird version of visibility, and it's so odd to see where it pops up. I just started this Fitness and Post thing that Zach Arnold is doing, and I had to become friends with Zach on Facebook in order to join the Facebook group that's driving it. And he posted his nephew's ALS challenge video, and he had an Achievement Hunter shirt on, which is our gaming department. and I designed the Achievement Hunter logo and that shirt that he was wearing. So I posted a comment on his page, and he's like, by the way, like, I worked on that. And he's like, really? What? I was like, yeah, next time you talk to your nephew, just tell him that you know somebody who works at Rooster Teeth. And his nephew saw that and was like, oh my God, Brian B? Like, you know Brian B? That's amazing. And he's like, yeah, my professor uses your stuff in class as examples. And we're like, what? He's like, that 10th anniversary logo you did is still one of the prettiest things I've ever seen. I'm like, so weird. Like, I was thankful. It was really cool, and it was kind of flattering. But being involved, I think one of the differences of being involved in a YouTube channel versus working in an agency is that there is this weird visibility. Like, there are people who are fans of the company, and because they're fans of the company, they want to know everything about everybody that works in the company. And so there's this small group of people who want to know who the motion designer is at Rooster Teeth, and like, they're fans of that. And I mean, I get that's cool, but that's not something that happens with, like, oh my gosh, I'm a fan of that agency, I need to know everybody who works at that agency. And so there's this weird visibility that you wouldn't necessarily have. And I've been kind of thankful for it, because it's given me some opportunities to be able to. My parents are both teachers, and I didn't go into teaching, but the fact that our audience is so young, well, high school and college, they're at the early stages of their careers. And so a lot of the people who've sought me out, because they like what I do at Rooster Teeth, sought me out because they know I'm a motion designer and they want to be doing that. And so, to be able to have the ability to mentor people has been really awesome. I mean, I know there were people that I looked up to when I was in high school, people like Brian Moffat, who was doing Total Training. His Total Training After Effects videos taught me a lot of what he was, like the Andrew Kramer of his time. And so, I mean, I know I went to NAB this year and I saw him at the Cinema 4D panel, and I totally fanboyed out. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to meet you. It was like, you taught me everything, not everything, but a lot of what I know about what I do. So, I'm thankful that I have some of those small opportunities to do something similar, and I think if I weren't at a YouTube channel, I wouldn't necessarily have that. And so, if that's the difference, I think that would probably be what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you get working in an agency. Like I said, no one's looking at that commercial saying, "Oh, that's that agency, and I need to know who did that." So, yeah, that visibility is kind of nice to have.
It's weird. The first time, there was another instance of somebody knowing who I was in a way, and my friend Zach is a production guy in Minnesota, and I was talking to him about Rooster Teeth, and he was saying that he had been at Thanksgiving with his nephew, and his nephew had been talking about Red versus Blue and how excited he was about Red versus Blue, and he was talking about this big flamethrower fight that had happened during season 9, just this giant pain project that I worked on. And it seems like all of the worst projects that I've ever worked at Rooster Teeth have involved fire somehow. Zach told his nephew, he was like, "Oh, I know the guy who did that." And he's like, "You know Mr. Torchy?" And we're like, so anyway, I mean, it's just weird. Like, I still think it's surreal that there's people who know what I do, because I'm just I do. There's so many people who are better at what I do than I am. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, you have about 15 minutes left. Before we get to any more questions, then there's a couple more that came up. But did you want to walk us through any more of your process or any other projects?
I'm trying to figure out what would make sense to go through, that we would have time to go through. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Here's something that I can show. So I've been working on a project. This is let me pull up the display audio. This is very early. This is not the finished version, but I've been shooting. My wife and I and some friends who all have kids the same age have been shooting film remakes with babies. And
I remember you talking about this before. Yeah.
So this is a rough draft of our Ghostbusters project, and so many non-finished effects. But I'm gonna pull that up and show that. So. Okay. And in a second, I'll show a more finished shot, and we'll do a breakdown of how I did the proton stream. Okay, so there's very little that's actually finished in here. So I built that ghost trap.
Nice.
And it flashes out to what they're really doing. So let me pull up the. I have a more finished shot. So this is what it will actually look like. So here's a Slimer model that we found, and I use Cinema 4D to and some effectors to very carefully kind of bend this non-rigged model so that it looked like it was animating. And actually use some blend shapes that were introduced in R15, which worked awesome. It was really cool. And being able to dial those blend shapes in, with the sculpting tools, was really cool. But what I wanted to talk about quickly was how I did the proton pack. I did a version a while ago for Ain't It Cool with Harry Knowles, which is a show that I was working on, where I used Trapcode 3D Stroke, but I wanted to figure out a way that I could do it in Cinema 4D. And so, let's see if 4D will behave this time.
You're tempting fate.
We're tempting fate.
And while we're waiting for that to load, Matt also wants to know Ghostbusters 1 or 2.
There are things that I like about both of them. I like the fact that Ghostbusters 2 introduced me to Gloria Gaynor's "Higher and Higher," which is one of the greatest soul songs of that era. I liked seeing Statue of Liberty walking, but probably Ghostbusters 1. I mean, I think that's the classic. Ghostbusters 2 is sort of like Indiana Jones 4. Like, it exists, but so anyway, so what we're looking at here, I went ahead and I brought in an image sequence of that shot, and then I've got a square that I set up that I tracked across and matched up with the hand movement, and then I used that square as a parent to create a spline that I just kind of stitched into I created a tube, and then I'm just using deformers to be able to kind of bend that tube, and I've set the access point to where it's parented to that square, so that wherever I bend it, it bends around that axis, which is a really easy way to kind of create that shape. And so, if we take the bend, we can see that, we can do some cool animated shapes. And then what I did is I've got the texture duplicated, and I set up a procedural texture that allows. There are things that I like about Indy 4, but Indy 4 is not the high point of the Indiana Jones collection. I would say that would probably be the first one or Temple of Doom, for different reasons. But so what I did was, I was able to take this noise pattern, and again, Cinema 4D isn't being super responsive, but what it was able to do was create. You can kind of see this pattern where it sort of wraps around, and I used a very simple pattern to make a duplicate of the tube, and then displace it out. So the texture that I applied, would look like that blue was outside of that tube, and then with some compositing and some extra glow and some blurring, you end up with something that looks fairly organic when it's all procedural. And the cool thing about it is, I think that sells as a proton pack, and it looks relatively painted. So in here, I think you can see that you can see the jaws opening up. And Slimer's jaws opening up. I guess I have had some fairly controversial views about Indy 4 and Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters 2 is a better film than Indiana Jones Part 4. Does that make everybody feel better? I mean, I like both of them in different ways, but I like Ghostbusters 2 much more. So anyway, questions? I lost your audio. Maybe it was my headphones.
No, it's me muting things, so
Okay.
nobody hears me coughing with my head cold. Yeah, so this came up earlier, but I didn't have time to ask it because it is a little bit more unrelated. But what are 2 or 3 of your favorite must-have scripts or plugins that's not directly, first-party After Effects or Cinema 4D?
Magic Solo, which is part of Cinema 4D now, but I use that solo button all the time. Ease and Whiz, which is a AE script that introduces some extra ease features, and then probably Mocha Import. Yeah, Mocha Import Plus. Like, I use that all of the time. And then probably number 4 would just be BG Renderer. BG Renderer is amazing, and I use it at the office. Maybe not every day, but I'm on a project today where I'm finishing up the last episode of a mini-series we're doing called iBlade, and there's a bunch of shots that don't take a lot of time to set up, but I need to render out while I'm working on something else, and being able to set them up and send it off to the background and render while I'm working is a huge time saver. So,
yeah. Do you use the notifications in there a lot? Because I know it can do like growl and other things.
I've never used the notifications. Most of the time when I'm using, actually Charles brings up Perfect Split, and that would probably be number 5 on my list. I use Perfect Split a lot, and no lie, Perfect Split is, in fact, I think I've got it I've got it right there. So Perfect Split is right next to Throusey and Magic Solo. So go download Perfect Split if you haven't yet, because Charles did a really good job developing it. And
Man,
I'm probably going to get another notification on my screen.
And you can give him some extra money for that one too.
Yeah, you can
pay what you want.
Stroke his ego. So.
Yeah, because he needs that, really.
Well, he does. He does. Yeah, I haven't used the notifications because most of the time I'm sitting at my desk and I just need it running in the background. I probably should, but I'm lazy, and it did what I needed it to do, and I never really looked any further.
Yeah. And one of the last questions we have, too, we only have about 5 minutes left. Any of the TV shows or movies that Any of your favorites that inspire you in your work?
I mean, there's a whole list of movies that made me want to make movies. I remember the first time I saw The Never-Ending Story when I was a kid, like rushing to go write down my own version of where things went after that. I remember how I felt the first time I walked out of the theater after I saw The Matrix. It was like, oh my God, I need to go make movies. But I mean, there's stuff I'm inspired by every day. It really just depends on what I happen to be watching. But I think there's inspiration anywhere. I try to find inspiration for my motion design projects outside of MoGraph. I mean, I think that's probably the only thing. It's like I spend a lot of time looking at graphic design and trying to think about how that would move instead of looking at how something someone else made something move, because I don't want to have it accidentally look like their project too much. But
Yeah, makes sense.
The kids project that we're working on right now, I mean, those are all things that we were inspired by, and hopefully there will be other. The goal is that we're not going to just do Ghostbusters. We're going to do all kinds of crazy, stupid things. Like all of a sudden, there's baby Ingmar Bergman. Nobody's ever done the Seventh Seal with babies before, so why not?
Yeah, well, I know Ron Rovino on Twitter just brought up Battleship Potemkin.
Yeah, that would be a good one. My wife wanted to do The General, Buster Keaton's film, so I don't know. We'll see. But
So I think sounds like there's a party over there at Rooster Teeth right now, and
yeah, they're busy recording commentaries, and so hopefully I haven't been too loud. But there's a chance that this will be part of whatever commentary they're recording at the moment. So
buy some Rooster Teeth DVDs, and you can maybe hear this conversation again.
Yeah, I think it would probably be on the RVB Season 12 DVD, so there's always a possibility. Pre-orders are available now at roosterteeth.com/store, so that's...
It's a shameless plug for the
So if anybody wants to find out more about me, they can just follow me on Twitter at FlabbyIronMan. Or if you want to know more about Rooster Teeth, you can go to roosterteeth.com or youtube.com/roosterteeth.
All right. Well, I know it's about 2 minutes early. It's 9:58 East Coast time. You're Central, aren't you?
I am. I'm just way south of you. We're connected by I-35.
Yeah, you can always take a drive straight up, and I can drive down.
Yeah, we can go to Kansas City.
Yeah, there you go.
Some ribs.
Well, you should come up in summer, and I'll come down there in winter, and it'll work out.
You know what? It was so we had a chance to be in Minnesota in July for not great reasons, but we were up there, and it was so nice being out of the heat. So I forgot. The only times I'm ever back in Minnesota are like at Christmas time, and I'd forgotten that there are nice times in Minnesota. And so it was nice being reminded that Minnesota can be a pleasant place and not just a snowy, frozen wonderland.
For like 9 months out of the year, it's not snowing. So.
No, I know. I should. I just can't get past January. It was really tough.
Yeah, that is tough out there.
So,
yeah. Well, do you have any last comments or words of wisdom for the peanut gallery out there?
Hopefully, I wasn't too horrific. This was a beta, and we will definitely work on ironing out all of the issues.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Hopefully people liked it. Like I think it's a cool way to do MoChat every once in a while. I don't think it's everything, but it's an experiment.
Yeah, and I think we'll keep playing with this, and we'll find ways to see if we can get the Twitter chat into the stream somehow, so that'll be a little bit easier to follow along, and or on the recording too, because I think that's going to be tough. But we'll see. We'll see how it works out.
I think if Kate were on screen, probably would have gone better because she would have had plenty more interesting things to say.
No, I think Rooster Teeth is interesting, and a lot of people seem to find it interesting too. And it's
mostly
nice
14-year-old boys.
I'm going to cut us off there because I can't even begin to imagine what Charles is going to say. So yeah, it's been a fun MoChat on air beta, trademark, whatever we want to call this.
I had a blast.
Yeah, it was fun.
I
So
apologize for having to delay it a couple of weeks, but I'm glad
Oh,
we
no.
were able to make it happen.
we made it happen tonight. So
So anyway, go back and watch the archive, everybody.
yeah.
And what's the tagline?
The tagline?
Yeah.
It's go make something.
Go make something.
Go make something. Hashtag.
So hashtag go make. Now we're throwing gang signs on the screen. So,
Does motion design have a gang
go
sign?
make something.
What would that be?
I don't know.
Yeah. All right, well, Brian, thanks a lot for hanging out with us tonight, and yeah, it was fun.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right, thanks everybody. Look for the recording later on, provided everything works right. And yeah, go make something. Keep the chat going. Join us next week. We'll do a couple more giveaways because we've been kind of late and slacking on those. So there'll be a few to go on. And in 2 weeks, I think it's 2 weeks, we're going to have the 100th Mo Chat. So we'll try to find something pretty spectacular for that. So again, Brian, thanks, and see everyone later.
No problem. Have a good night, you guys.